You're listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast with Elliot Rowe and Dr. Tricia Gardner.
So welcome to the show. Tricia, what do you have for us this week?
Well, I read a super interesting journal article, and it was on Super Champions, Champions, and Almost was the title of it by Drs. Collins, McNamara, and McCarthy. And it just came out in January 2016 in the journal called Frontiers in Psychology. And what they did is they wanted to look at people who are super champions versus champions. Okay, super champions are, everybody knows that in the sporting world. It's like just your super sickos, okay? Versus, people who are really, really good. And they wanted to find out what are kind of the psychological differences. And I picked out 4. Now, this was around sports, but I feel like these psychological traits definitely apply in poker. And so these 4 things are what these super champions have in spades. The first one is their commitment is super 100% strong. And so that makes sense. Second, and this is pretty interesting, and I think poker players will relate to this, they kept a positive reaction to challenges. So they were never satisfied, and they had a very strong internal drive to always learn more and do more. And instead of being reactive, they're being proactive, which is actually one of the traits as well. And then finally, they would all use this reflection and reward system where they would always think after a game or a competition and analyze both what went well and what didn't go well. And if you get really good at analyzing yourself, what you can do, and this is what super champions do, is use the information to highlight areas that you need development in and then set goals to make those. And it's interesting because the super champions, that's what they were doing. Whereas the champions, who are still very good, but a notch less, they spent their time searching on rankings, where they ranked and focusing on kind of externals. So I think if you can learn commitment, positive reaction to challenge, reflection and reward, and how to be proactive instead of reactive, which means, preparing and planning for what might come up instead of just being surprised when you fail or run bad. If you could do those things, I think you might have a chance at being a super champion too.
And I'll be honest, those are things that I've actually noticed in some of those very high stakes clients I've worked with as well. So it's not really surprising at all. So yeah, really, really great stuff there. This week, we've got Brent Hanks coming on the show. He's a World Series bracelet winner, and he's now involved in Poker Central, the TV channel running the Super High Roller Bowl. So let's give him a call. So Brent, thanks for coming on the show. If you could introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. My name is Brent Hanks, and I have been a professional poker player for the last 8 years or so. Before that, I was a school teacher. I taught 5th and 6th grade in a very small rural farm town in western New York. I got into the game through my dad playing some real fun home games, and then, of course, the online boom happened thanks to Chris Moneymaker and some of his buddies. And I jumped on board, became very successful at poker, and essentially I never looked back. And currently I'm working for Poker Central, which is a 24/7 television channel, the only one.
At my house, I consume Poker Central through my Roku. We're going to get back to, your amazing history in poker, but I just wanted to clarify. So I watch Poker Central through my Roku, which is, a streaming device. Is it also on cable TV, or how can people consume it?
Yeah, so Roku is one of the types of devices that you're able to find Poker Central at this current time. They're called OTT devices, over the top. Roku, Apple TV, the 3rd version, which is the newest version, any of the Xbox units, and I think some of your Android devices. Anyway, as of right now, these OTT devices is how you can access our channel. And then as far as cable television goes, that is all in the works. All of the stuff is on the table. It's to be determined. We're in negotiations with all sorts of companies. So eventually we will be there. Right now, you just got to call your cable provider and say, hey, I want Poker Central.
And sort of your big event that you're holding, the Super High Roller Bowl, sort of how big is that for you guys? How key is that to your production?
It's huge. This will be the 2nd year. Last year was our inaugural event. The buy-in was actually $500,000 to play in this. And of course, Brian Rast was the winner. He won $7.5 million. for the Super High Roller Bowl. It really is. It's our pinnacle event. It essentially puts Poker Central on the map as far as how involved we are inside the poker community. We're not just a TV channel. We're also behind one of the best, in my opinion, it is the best high roller in the entire world. And that's for a variety of reasons, if none more important than the negative rakeback, where we actually kick in the buy-in. So this year's buy-in is $300,000. Poker Central is matching that. And we're saying, here you go. There's a field of 49 players. We're going to put $300,000 on top. There's no rake for this event, and you guys have at it. And I think that has a lot to do with the success that we have with this event. The thing sold out in under 2 weeks, which there's not a single high roller in the world that has come close to that. So we set the bar pretty high.
So how many guys will you have in the event this year?
We have 49 total players. In fact, it's guys and gals. I believe we have a female contestant this year. She's been playing in a number of high rollers. Found on our website, by the way, which is www.superhighroller.com. It's got all the listed players, profiles, tournament payouts, venues, all that good stuff. 49 players, which means there will be 7 players at 7 different tables. So pretty cool. 7-handed events, for these super high rollers, they love playing short-handed poker, and this is kind of a hybrid. It's not 6 max, but it's not, the full 10-handed, full ring table. It's a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've really designed it with the professionals in mind.
Yeah, we certainly have. The crew that put the whole thing together, starting as far back as last year, is some poker professionals as well as some of your wisest businessmen in the world that also love to play poker. And it said, how can we balance this? How can we make both sides happy? And we came up with a really nice structure, and so far so good. Everybody loves it. The usage of the shot clock too. I think that we have implemented that, and that has taken off not only with our events, but it's now you're seeing this at other events. I know the World Poker Tour, they just had the Tournament of Champions down in Florida, and they also implemented a shot clock. So you're starting to see these changes happen throughout the ecosystem and throughout the game. It's pretty neat.
Well, I just recently purchased my very own shot clock. I found like a little sand timer, which is hot pink. And I'm going to be taking that to the World Series this summer. So watch out.
I love it. That's great.
Now, you do have a long history with the World Series. And since that is going to be coming up really quickly, I was hoping we could kind of pick your brain a little bit on that. Because for people who don't know, you actually won a bracelet in 2012, and you've had a lot of other deep runs, besides that win. So do you want to talk about, what it was like winning the bracelet? And then maybe we can kind of break it down, in terms of some preparation and hints.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I won a bracelet in 2012. It happened to be the very first event that any of us could play. Typically, in years past, they do the casino employees event. That's the first one, and then they have their. It's usually a $1,500 no limit event, and that was the event I won. So, not a bad way to start the series. Just go ahead and win the first event, and then you're essentially free rolling, and you've got yourself a winner for the rest of the series. So
very nice.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I think I have 5 final tables. So I've made some runs. I've had some shots prior to that. Last year wasn't so good. I fizzled out. I didn't make very many deep runs at all. But that's kind of the nature of the beast with a lot of these tournaments.
And, you're being a little modest here, but when I was looking over your records, you've made deep runs in the 8 game. You've made deep runs in the shootout. You've done it in no limit hold'em at various buy-ins. So it sounds like you're pretty versatile.
Yeah. In years past, I was able to play a variety of games, and that was in particular because of the prevalence of online poker. So, with those types of formats there, I could study, I could learn, I could play and put myself in positions with, some of the better players in mixed games. And that's how I learn. I learn through experience and through just throwing myself right into the middle of the ring and seeing what I can do and figuring out, what it takes to. And for me, that's just always kind of been my learning style. That's my way of studying. And if I'm not playing, I'm always watching.
Wow. So in terms of formal study, you weren't doing any formal study for the events prior to it, just playing in the games?
Yeah, pretty much. I've never. I guess I'm a simpleton in that regard. I've never looked at structures and sheets and said, okay, I need to think about inflection points kind of along the way. For me, that was the last stuff I worried about was the structure of events and these types of things. For me, it was all about first and foremost who I've got at my table, who am I familiar with, and what do I know about them. If I don't know anything, I need to learn right away. How to exploit them, how I think they want to exploit me, vice versa. It's very much for me. It's the live element and understanding everything that's around me in total awareness.
So did your background as a teacher help you in any way to, come into poker or learn poker, or was it just a non-factor, do you think?
I think it absolutely helped me. I can make so many comparisons and analogies to what it was like being a teacher and understanding that you have a classroom full of diversity and diverse learners and kids that need different ways to tackle different subjects. If you're teaching a math lesson, you have certain kids that learn very well with visual aids. You have other kids that learn very well with, give them some work, give them a sheet of paper, go nuts, try and figure out the problem. And then you have other sorts of learners that that really need the one-on-one time. They need someone over their shoulder, that kind of thing, and to kind of help them walk through that. So when you understand that you have a diverse group of learners, the same thing happens in the poker environment. When you're at the table, that's kind of my classroom, and you understand that each opponent you're up against has their own unique way of playing, and they are very much diverse in their own way. And I think the two kind of go hand in hand.
So it's like having a lot of children at the table. Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes my fifth and sixth graders can be much more mature than your average group of nine at a poker table. That's for sure.
Now, I know that, you were at the Solve for Why camp. Brent was one of the coaches, and that's Matt Berkey's camp. And I think, I could be wrong on this, but I think that was maybe the first time you had really dug deep into the mental game. And
absolutely it was. I'd never even thought about that. Yeah, I've never even thought about the mental game until I saw your presentation. And I was really taken back. And the one thing I couldn't help but think about is everywhere you read in the news and, you go to the doctor and you're getting yourself physically checked out and, they're telling you need to do this, you need to exercise more, you need to train more, you need to eat right. Everything's about physical health. And never once have I put any thought into your mental health and your mental preparation and what it takes to really be strong mentally, and I think for some people that should be a priority even more so than physical health, and it was very eye-opening, and I appreciated that so much, Tricia. I got a great deal out of your presentation at the Solve for Why camp.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And then another thing I just was hoping you could touch on is because you are new to it, and I think maybe some of our listeners might be new to the idea as well. What do you think somebody who's coming out to the World Series this summer, right now we've got a few weeks before, what do you think they could do or should do or might even just think about regarding the mental game and, being successful at the series?
I think the easiest thing, or not even necessarily the easiest thing, but the most important part is to have a mental game plan and give yourself a goal, give yourself some achievement, something that you can actually go after and make it happen. So much when I think about my first trip coming out to the World Series in 2005, I came out here just completely clueless, eyes totally closed. I had no plan. I had no goals. I just came out here thinking, hey, I'm going to go play poker. I'm going to win. It was essentially step one, step two. That's it. And there is so much more that you can put into that, and it doesn't take much. It essentially takes sitting down, thinking about it, putting it into perspective and giving yourself achievable goals. Whether it's you want to say, hey, I'm going to come out, I'm going to play the Colossus, the $565 tournament. Give yourself goals throughout that event, Think about the aspects of poker that you're really comfortable and really familiar with as far as strategy goes. I'm not going to overplay my ace kings, or I'm not going to go crazy with pocket jacks in the first level, whatever it is. And give yourself goals and see if you can reach those. If you can achieve those goals throughout the course of a day, throughout the course of a tournament, I think you'll be really surprised as to how much just mental preparation and what that would do for your results.
And I mean, is that something that you've tried before in terms of doing the setting the goals in terms of, I've noticed this leak in my game. Today I'm going to be sitting down, I'm going to be focusing on that. It's a successful session if I don't call when I think I might be beaten, or whatever it is from your side.
Yeah, it certainly is. In the older, it's stuff I never even really had thought about that I was kind of doing without putting much thought into it. Again, like I said, I saw Trista's presentation and I said, holy cow, I can really improve in so many different aspects of the mental mindset. And it was, for me now, it's understanding that I can give myself these lofty goals, and I know what it takes to reach those. And it's a matter of executing the steps and all the way up the ladder to get there. And if I notice that I'm regressing and if I'm slipping downhill, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we call that the U.
Yeah.
If I start to get stuck kind of in what I feel is that rut or that U, right then and there, I'm able to hit the reset button and know that that's where I'm at. And I need to present myself with a way to get out of here. How do I get out of this U, and how do I start climbing back towards the top right now in this specific tournament? What do I need to do? And as long as I feel like I'm executing and I'm doing what it takes to get there, then I'm very happy and I'm confident. No matter what the results are, I know that I'm executing the right mental mindset to reach the results and to reach the top to where I know I belong.
And what he's talking about, for people listening going, what does he mean by this you? It was just a little piece of my presentation where I talked about how when we get started, maybe at an event, we're all, smiles and it's great. And we can see the end point that we want, which would be like, winning the event. But then as we're going, we're kind of going down into the valleys where we're hitting these spots where things are not going well. And maybe we've lost a bunch of chips, and you can either get stuck down there in the valley of that U and just bust out, or you can try and think, like Brent's saying, of some things you can do to climb back out and always keep your eye on the prize. So that's just a little synopsis.
And that's something definitely on a sort of a series-wide level that you can do as well, isn't it? Because, we talk about this all the time, the optimism and happiness of the first week of the series, which by week 3 or week 4, if you haven't had a big score, can turn into that feeling of dread and being stuck, as you say, at the bottom of that U. So, within a tournament it works, but also within the series as a whole, sometimes you have to be honest with yourself and really make sure you drive yourself back to success again.
Yeah, that's huge, Elliot. That's a really good point. And that whole, just being honest with yourself, as to what's happening around you and, why it's happening is, I don't think that could be stated enough. I know that I'm guilty of that. Years past, if I'm stuck right there at the bottom, the series is really sucking. It's a lot of it is just about just being honest with yourself and facing the facts. What are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? And how can you prepare mentally to trend up? How do we get out of here?
So for the series, it is such a long, drawn out process. Some people are going to get there at the beginning of May and not leave till, the middle of July. Do you have any other tips you can share on just how to make it through the gauntlet?
Yeah. I mean, just understand if you're coming out here for the first, second, third time, that's pretty new experience, right? I mean, you've only played so many events. They only offer 50, 60 plus a year, and you're probably playing about a third of those, depending on how much money you're putting into the series. But if you find yourself just getting frustrated and you're beating yourself over the head with these events, take a break. You have to take a break. Give yourself the opportunity to feel fresh again. Give yourself the opportunity to feel hungry. If you lose that, and if you lose that passion, if you lose that hunger, you might as well just hand the cage the rest of your money, because you're not going to succeed. So if you don't give yourself a break, and if you don't give yourself that opportunity to really refresh, then I think you're doing yourself a massive disservice.
And is that something you've noticed in players? You've had these deep runs to the final tables and things. Have you seen guys just seemingly sort of give it away through exhaustion or tilt or depression, as they're going through those.
Not only do I see that every single series, I almost see that every single event. I mean, you'll get to I'd hope I see it every event if I'm in it long enough, but you get to a point where you watch a person become so overwhelmed with frustration and anxiety and basically not having discipline, and they give it away. They essentially just give every single chip away, and they're done. They're completely done. And then where do you see them the next day? Right back at it, playing another tournament, getting frustrated, doing the same thing all over again on repeat. And again, I believe if I'm understanding this correctly, they're right there in that U, right on the bottom, just laying down belly up. You see it all the time, and it's unfortunate, but it's how it is.
Now, you also play a lot of the other events. I know you've had some deep runs, like over in the Wynn Classic, for example. So these other events that are going on in the summer, what's your advice to players in regard to those events and the World Series? And especially if maybe they don't have as big a bankroll, do you think those events are good value?
Great value. Yeah, the Venetian, the Wynn, I think Planet Hollywood is running series as well. There are tons of events. If you're not trying to play $1,000 buy-ins plus, you'll find hundreds of events this summer in a variety of locations in Las Vegas that will be massive. You'll play $300 buy-ins that are going to have over $200,000 in the prize pool, and you can walk out of there with $30,000-$40,000 bucks, and the value is fantastic. You're a lot of times. You're not going to be up against, your top tier pros. You're going to be up against, your average Joes that are coming out and just trying to have a good time and essentially just, win some money. And it's great. There isn't a better place than Las Vegas during the World Series of Poker to come play poker. And it doesn't have to be at the Rio. It could be at the Venetian. It could be at the Wynn. It could be at Planet Hollywood. The Golden Nugget runs a really good series. All of them are excellent value for anybody trying to come out and make some scores.
And I kind of wonder, because you did mention about, these smaller events, maybe, and by smaller, I mean lower priced buy-ins. I wonder what your thoughts are on the mental game and mental preparation for those smaller buy-in events. Would you give like the same advice that you gave for the, bigger buy-ins for the smaller ones as well?
Yeah, I think if you're playing the game the right way, you don't even really think about the buy-in, so to speak. It's if you're mentally, if we have the mental preparation, if we have it down and we love our approach coming into a tournament, we don't really worry about the buy-in. And I know that's easier said than done. If you're playing the $10,000 main event, you're going to have situations that will probably stress you out more so than the daily at the Flamingo for $60. Those coin flips, those all-in moments typically will affect you more so. But overall, when it comes to, the preparation and trying to stay positive and give yourself goals to achieve throughout a series or throughout a tournament, all of that stays the same. None of that changes. It's whether I'm playing the 10K main event at the WSOP or the 565 Colossus, massive buy-in differences, my strategy is going to remain the same. And especially my mental approach, it's all that stuff stays the same.
Do you see sort of a difference with that super high roller bowl, the way that the very elite players are preparing things for their competition?
Elliot, I can tell you this for certainty, that the best players in the world that are playing the super high roller bowls, from your Brian Rast to your Esfandiaris to your Daniel Negreanu's to your Fedor Holtz, all of these guys that are playing this level of poker right now, they're doing a lot more than just studying strategy on poker forums. They're doing a lot more than just focusing on their nutrition. They are putting in the time, the work, and the effort to improve their mental performance as well. So not only are they in great physical shape, they're in great mental shape. And if you have that combination down, and you're also implementing the strategies that are going to succeed in such a tough field, you have an edge. And there's a reason that we've seen the successes out of Brian Rast lately. And there's a reason that Daniel Negreanu is staying at the top of the game. They work on their mental health just as much as they work on their physical health. And that's true.
With Rast this week, I don't know if people saw it, he actually he won a bet of cycling from, I think, Los Angeles to Las Vegas in 48 hours on 24 hours notice for $600,000 this week. And it's all that's mental toughness. I mean, he did the bet that Dan Bilzerian had for he had a month of training. Brian did it, I think, after making the bet one night at the poker table, and he managed to complete it as well. So, a huge demonstration of his mental toughness there off the poker table, as well as what we saw, when he had those successes last year.
I saw him tweet something about that too, where he didn't really care about. He knew it was going to be as physically as challenging as possible, but he went out of his way to talk about how he wanted to put himself in that mental laboring spot, to overcome that battle. And I heard some insider stories about that bet, where along the way his knee gave out and he had to have a doctor come see him. And then very close to the end, I think he had like 6 hours to go. He was so tired and so fatigued, he got this induced anxiety attack. So he had to regroup himself to complete that into heavy winds for the final leg of that journey and overcome an anxiety attack, and he did it. And to go through that, it just what an accomplishment, and that shows you how mentally tough these guys are.
He is such a beast, and I have so much respect for him. But I will tell the listeners, no matter how much of a beast somebody is, you can still have a chance when you get against him in a tournament, because I actually played with Brian Rast on a World Series event. I think it was a 1K or 1500K. And when he came to the table, my heart just sunk. I was like, oh no. But I made a goal for myself. You might like this, Brent. I made a goal for myself. I was like, you know what? I got to bust him out of here. Because if he gets chips, right, he's going to just kill us all. And so I went out of my way and I found a couple good spots, and I did end up busting him out. And so I know
that's awesome.
That just made me so happy, because he is a beast in just so many ways.
And Trisha's got that scalp on her wall now.
That's great. You slayed the king.
That's right. I mean, obviously it was completely, standard and not really a big deal, but just
you make an awesome point there with poker in general. I'm talking about how mentally prepared. And I don't want to stress people out that are trying to come out and play poker. I mean, bottom line is poker for me and always will be. It's fun. If you lose that. If I lose that idea is how much fun I can have when I play a game, then I don't want to play anymore. I have to enjoy myself. And that for me is that's half the battle, is making sure that I'm still able to have fun. And poker, the way the game is played, you can be at a table with Phil Ivey, Brian Rast, I don't care who it is. It could be your day. You might get the cards and you can win, and that's just true. That's how poker is, If you're trying to win, these massive tournaments and you're going to make it through a field, then you need to really think about some mental preparation and some strategy, to get you to the top. But on any given day, it could be your day. I think that's the coolest part about the game.
And it's one of the few games where you can actually play against the best in the world. You can't, if you're a golfer, you can't just get on a course with Tiger Woods. But as a poker player, you can be sitting at the table with Phil Ivey.
Yeah, and you can win.
Yeah, and you're never going to beat Tiger Woods at golf.
That's great.
So in all your years of playing, live tournaments, what has been the most outrageous, wacky, fun, tilty thing you've seen at a table?
I personally, and this might sound crazy, I'm not a tilty player. I don't get mad at people. If I take a bad beat, whatever, it's part of the game. Again, for me, I'm not wired that way. I've seen some insane stuff. I've seen people throw chips across a table, a handful of chips after they've lost all of them. And instead of sliding them across the table, I witnessed this in a World Series event where a guy was so mad that he took his pile of chips and he literally took a handful of them and he whipped him across the table at the guy that busted him, and just, he pelted him in the head and the chest and the arms. And
wow.
I was pretty taken back. There wasn't any alcohol involved. It was just straight rage and anger and frustration. By the way, if I remember that guy's name, I will definitely send him your way because he could use some coaching. I mean, there's that. I've seen guys throw chairs, flip chairs. I think for me, though, still to this day, goes back to while I was still a school teacher and I was playing a lot of online poker, I went down to Erie, Pennsylvania, and I was with Matt Berkey and my good friend Brian LaManna. And my good friend Brian LaManna, we were all in the same room. We were playing online on a Sunday. Brian was in a position to win a package to Aruba. And I think the package, it paid for your flight, it paid for your tournament buy-in. And at the time, it was the Aruba Classic. First place was like $1 million. And the top 2 people got a seat, and third place got nothing. And my good friend Brian was essentially tied for chips to lock up the second seat. One guy had a lot of chips. Brian had, like a middling stack, and the other guy, they were tied for chips. So they're battling out for the top 2 spots. And Brian got in an all-in situation, and I think he had pocket kings, and the other guy had ace queen. They got all in pre, and if Brian won this pot, he was going to Aruba. He had a shot to win, some big money. At the time, that was well before we moved out to Vegas. This is a big deal. Sure enough, Barry Greenstein, ace on the river. It was a disaster. And my poor friend, my great friend Brian, he'll probably hate that I'm telling this story. He flipped his laptop, throws it across the room, and he's in a recliner, and he just stands up and he flips that freaking recliner, pounds it, he beats the shit out of it. I mean, that to me is the most tilting memory that I've seen that involved, somebody that I know personally, where poker really affected him in a great deal. And that was quite a story. I guess you had to be there for that one.
No, I was just thinking in my mind, like I would just, because I've met Brian and he's the nicest guy. And I was really in the zone visualizing him. And he's not even like that big of a guy, like literally flipping a recliner. Wow.
It was a sight to see. That's the thing. His personality, he's the most lovable, jolly human being in the world for the most part. And then it's, poker, you get frustrated, you get in one of these, essentially a life-changing spot, and, it goes bad, and, flip a switch. Next thing you know, the recliner's upside down, the laptop is, probably broken, smashed against a wall. Yeah, that was quite a moment.
Man, and again, where can people find the Poker Central to watch the Super High Roller Bowl?
Yeah, so if you're tuning in for the Super High Roller Bowl, we still have some details that are coming out regarding where you'll be able to watch it. But I can assure you this, that it will be on TV. It'll be available for everyone to be able to tune in. And more importantly, it's the date. It'll be Sunday, May 29th. I believe it's 1:00 in the afternoon, and that's West Coast time. So if you can tune in, it'll be on there. We'll have all sorts of press releases coming out the closer we get to the event at the end of this month. And one thing I can also share with you guys, keep an eye out next week. Poker Central is about to release a massive contest, a promotion for the Super High Roller Bowl. That will be coming out next week. I can't give you any details right now, but I can just tell you this thing is going to be huge. And it's the coolest contest and promotion that I have ever seen in the poker world. And it's not even close.
Oh my God. Well, now I'm on the edge of my seat wanting to know what this contest is.
Yeah, it is awesome. I can't wait. I have a pretty big mouth, so the fact that I can shut up right now and not talk about it is pretty impressive.
We thank you so much for coming on and talking all about the Super High Roller Bowl and the World Series. I think you just gave like a lot of really amazing tips, and I'm looking forward to finding out what this contest is.
Oh, that's great. I can't thank you guys enough for having me on here. I'm thrilled to be a guest.
Hey, man, it'd be good to see you in Vegas as well this year.
Hey, you too, Elliot. Looking forward to it. Let's have a beer.
Will do.
All right.
Excellent.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. What a nice guy. It was really good to have Brent on the show.
Oh my God, I love him. He's just the funnest guy. But I have to admit, I'm a little, I don't know what the word is, piqued, frustrated. I don't know, because he teased us with that big contest news and then he couldn't tell us what it was.
We'll have to keep our eyes on Twitter.
I'm hoping that it's going to be a seat into the game. I mean, that would be like beyond crazy, but how crazy amazing would that be if you could just like through a contest win a seat?
Hey, fingers crossed. I mean,
Right?
Don't get everyone's hopes up, though.
No, it's just my own hopes. I'm like, what could it be? What could it be? Right? I mean, it could be anything, but that would be super fun.
Yeah, definitely. And great to hear his thoughts, on the talk that you'd given as well at Mark Boakie's course, with that idea of being in the U and actually having to work your way out.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what it told me is I did that talk. It's been, I don't know, a while now, at least a month, probably more than a month ago, and he still remembers. So that makes me feel good that somebody remembers, the stuff I told him.
Good to hear it repeated back. It means he was listening in class. He was a good student.
Exactly. And I think it's so interesting how even though he's had a long history of being, very successful in poker, but he never really thought that much about the mental game. And then once he saw it presented, he was just like, I need this in my life.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of players who have had that success previously, and it is becoming more important now because so many of the top players are investing in their mental game and working on this part of their poker, that it's going to be harder to have that success if you're not putting that same effort in.
Exactly. So guys, you just got to really keep your mind open and look for things that you think can help you be mentally tough and, maybe get at the 4 traits I was talking about in the opener.
And Tricia, where can people find out about yourself?
And they can check me out on my website, drtriciacardner.com, or follow me on Twitter at Dr. Tricia Cardner.
And if anyone's interested in my coaching or my products, go to pokermindcoach.com. And we shall talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast with Elliot Rowe and Dr. Tricia Cardner. To get any resources mentioned in the episode or to listen to past shows, visit pokermindcoach.com/TMA podcast. Thanks for listening.